Greetings. Today I wanted to speak to you about the difference between the Zagga Fractional Investment Lending Trust structure and the kind of investment structures that you often find in other types of private loans, which are generally structured through a special purpose vehicle known as an SPV or a unit trust structure. The reason I wanted to do this is because over the last couple of weeks, we've had a number of calls and queries from investors and others asking us how our structure differs from those that are generally seen in the market. And I guess this is also more because of the fact that given COVID-19 and the conditions that currently abound, some investors are concerned that there may be an increase in loan defaults and that they may have to access the underlying security. I'm pleased to say that as far as the Zagga book is concerned, this is not the case, but nonetheless, this is a good opportunity to talk about the structure, and I'm going to do that for a few minutes. So as I said, Zagga is structured through a fractional investment, whereas the classic SPV or unit trust would be an equity investment. The difference between those is that in the equity investment through the SPV or the unit trust, you're really investing via a corporate entity, which could be a company or a trust or a unit trust. Whereas on the Zagga structure, you're actually investing through a bare dominium fractional trust. That means that you have direct see-through to the underlying asset and the underlying investment. The trust in the Zagga instance is, of course, regulated by the trust deed and the investor agreement that you would sign, whereas through the SPV or unit trust, it would be regulated by the constitution or trust deed of the company or the unit trust and some form of shareholders agreement which would abound. That shareholders agreement would probably create a class of shares that you would hold as an investor, and the rights of those shares may be restricted relative to other classes of shares. Whereas in the Zagga instance, there is no share, it's direct see-through investment, and your rights and those of any other investors are all identical in terms of the trust deed. So as I said, with the Zagga structure, you have absolute see-through. You can consider this to be a conduit to the underlying security structure, whereas in an SPV or unit trust investment, you would have no see-through rights and you would only have very limited access. In the case of the Zagga trust deed, certain investors under certain circumstances can unseat us as trustee and appoint a new trustee, whether that is a third person or a professional trustee, whereas if you are an investor in equity through a unit trust or a special purpose vehicle, you really have almost no opportunity whatsoever to alter or amend your rights. And if you can, it's going to be a very difficult and time-consuming and potentially expensive process. With the Zagga structure also, Zagga as trustee can assign that mortgage. Technically and in theory, if you own 10% of the loan, you can actually ask for the mortgage to be assigned or split, and you can actually get your 10% interest separately registered, although obviously that's not practical under the circumstances, but from a legal point of view, it is achievable. In an SPV or a unit trust investment, you're not going to get any direct access to the underlying mortgage, and your rights of access are probably going to end with the rights that are attributable to the class of shares of which you are the registered owner. The Zagga structure is highly flexible in terms of the rights and obligations it can allow from transaction to transaction or from investor to investor on condition that everyone is treated on a like-for-like basis. Whereas in an SPV or a unit trust structure, it's a fixed, highly rigid structure. So that, in a nutshell, is really the difference between the Zagga Fractional Investment Structure through Zagga Investments Lending Trust, with Zagga Investments Pty Limited as the trustee holding its financial services license, as opposed to the classic type of investment through a special purpose vehicle or a unit trust. I guess, why zig when you can Zagga? Thank you and see you next time.